Welcome to another quiet journey into the distant past. Tonight, as the world around you softens into silence, we will drift gently back more than 2,000 years ago to the heart of ancient China. The air is cool, the earth is damp, and time slows down. This is the era of the Qin dynasty, a time of great upheaval, but also of quiet daily endurance. Of farmers and fields, of rulers and walls, of lives mostly forgotten, but never entirely erased. You do not need to stay alert. You do not need to remember every name or detail. Just allow the rhythm of these old stories to flow around. You like the breeze through rice stalks. You may find your mind wandering, and that is perfectly fine. Let it wander. Let it rest. We will begin, as we so often do not, with the grand palaces or mighty emperors, but with the ordinary people, those who toil beneath the sun and sky, beneath the gaze of the new and powerful Qin rule. Imagine yourself now standing at the edge of a quiet village in the eastern heartlands. The mist hangs low over rows of millet, and a faint scent of wood smoke clings to the morning air. Let us step into their world now softly and slowly and see what life was like. The village is still half asleep. A rooster crows somewhere. In the distance, not with urgency, but as if simply marking time, a wooden door creaks open. A barefoot woman steps into the gray morning light, her sleeves rolled and her hair tied in a rough knot. She carries a woven basket already worn at the edges from a bamboo hook near the door. Another day has begun. For most peasants under Qin rule, life followed the gentle but unyielding rhythm of the seasons. Spring meant sowing, summer meant tending, autumn brought the harvest, and winter, if one was lucky, allowed rest. Homes were simple walls of packed earth, roofs thatched with straw, the floors hard and cool. Beneath bare feet, smoke from indoor hearths drifted through holes in the ceiling, leaving soot patterns that darkened the rafters over time. There was little furniture, just mats for sitting, low tables, perhaps a stool if one was fortunate. Meals were sparse, but regular steamed millet was the staple grain, sometimes flavored with herbs or wild greens gathered from the edges of the village paths. Meat was rare, reserved for offerings or illness. Most days a peasant might eat from the same chipped ceramic bowl, again and again, never expecting more. You might hear the soft swish of hoes through soil as the sun lifts over the fields. Men and women alike labored long hours. Children helped when they could, though many were too young to do much more than gather sticks or keep a watchful eye on the chickens. Tools were few, but essential: spades, plows pulled by oxen, woven baskets for seed. And though metal tools existed, they were expensive and scarce. A peasant family might share a single iron blade with their neighbors, handed down from father to son, its edge carefully sharpened by river stones. There were duties beyond farming, too. Under the Qin, a strict system of household registration kept everyone accounted for. Families were grouped into units of 10 or more, each responsible for the behavior and productivity of the others. If one member of a group disobeyed or faltered, the others were punished as well. This collective responsibility, though harsh, created a network of quiet surveillance. People spoke softly, trusted carefully, and moved cautiously within their roles. It was safer that way. From time to time, imperial inspectors came, messengers of the Qin state. Their arrival stirred nervous murmurs. Was the tax paid? Was every household accounted for? Had the correct measures of grain and labor been submitted? And yes, labor was demanded too. Every adult male was expected to give time to the state, digging canals, paving roads, or most famously, building the Great Wall. A son might vanish for months at a time, his footsteps swallowed by distant mountains. Whether he returned depended on fate and the favor of the overseers, but for all this control, there were still moments of quiet. You might see a woman humming a lullaby while weaving hemp fibers. You might hear an old man whispering folk tales beside a small fire. You might find children laughing in the mud after a summer rainstorm chasing frogs with their bare feet. They had little, but they endured. At night, the village settled again. Oil lamps flickered behind paper screens. The air-cooled crickets sang, and the same families that bent their backs in the fields now rested side by side. They told stories of old ancestors, of the yellow emperor, of dragons that lived in rivers, of spirits that watched from trees. And above them always the silent authority of the Qin, etched into laws, taxes, and fears, held steady like a shadow cast by the moon. This was the rhythm of their lives, constant, repetitive quiet, and always beneath it all a quiet strength and survival. Now let us slowly lift our gaze from the quiet fields and misty villages and drift toward the imperial court, to a figure whose name still echoes through stone tablets and mountain carvings, a man whose rule brought unity to a divided land, yet also burdened it with fear. He is remembered simply as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, but before he was emperor, he was a child. Born in 259 BCE, his name was Ying Zheng. His birth took place in the kingdom of Qin, one of many warring states that had long fought for dominance across the Chinese plains. Even in infancy, his future was shadowed by politics and intrigue. His father, the king of Qin, had once lived as a political hostage in the rival state of Zhao. Some whispered that Ying Zheng's true father might not be the king at all, but a merchant, a man named La Bu. These rumors lingered, but in the silent corridors of power they were never spoken aloud. As a boy, Ying Zheng was raised not in peace, but in preparation for conflict. Tutors taught him the philosophies of legalism, strict laws, clear punishments, and the supremacy of the state. He learned to govern through fear and efficiency, not kindness or virtue. He rarely smiled. Few dared to speak casually in his presence. He became king at just 13 years old, and though he was too young to rule on his own, those around him knew that he watched and remembered. By the time he reached adulthood, he had already begun to consolidate power, silencing rivals, eliminating regents, and placing his most loyal men in positions of command. And then the conquests began. One by one, the other states fell: Hanja, Wei, Si, and Qi. His armies, clad in leather armor and carrying crossbows, marched across rivers and mountains, building roads as they moved. The wars were long, but the result was total. By 221 BCE, Ying Zheng stood alone, the last king. The first emperor, he gave himself a new name, Shi Huangdi, meaning 1st August Emperor. Not king, but something more, something eternal. He declared that his dynasty would last for 10,000 generations. He ordered the standardization of weights and measures, currency, even axle lengths for carts. Scripts were unified, borders were redrawn, and the laws, those were enforced with swift certainty. Imagine it a realm suddenly united yet held together by the will of a single man. The farmers who once paid taxes to a local warlord now gave their grain to the imperial granary. The conscripts who once fought for their village were now marched hundreds of miles to defend a wall or die building one. But Qin Shi Huang did not rest. He feared death deeply. He sought elixirs, potions, and rituals that might grant him immortality. He sent ships eastward to seek out mystics said to live on sacred mountains. In the sea, they never returned. Some say they vanished. Others say they simply fled. Back home, he grew increasingly paranoid. Scholars who opposed his rule were silenced. Some were executed, many more were buried in obscurity alongside their books. In one infamous decree, he ordered the burning of all texts not sanctioned by the state. The past was to be erased. Only the Qin would define the future. Yet he continued to build his most famous construction. Still buried beneath layers of earth was his tomb, a sprawling underground mausoleum, said to mirror the empire itself, guarded by thousands of clay soldiers, each with a different face, each forever watching. And then, at just 49 years of age, the first emperor died. No fanfare, no final victory. He passed away on a journey far from his capital, still seeking the secrets of eternal life. His body, it is said, was hidden in a cart filled with fish to conceal the smell. His ministers, fearing unrest, pretended he was still alive as they traveled home. But the dynasty he built, strong, immense, and unyielding, collapsed just a few years after his death, crushed beneath the very weight of its own order. Still, his legacy lingered: roads, walls, laws. The name China itself, Qin, pronounced Qin, gave birth to that name. He unified the land, but at what cost? And in this quiet night, as you listen to the steady rhythm of history, you may wonder, was it better to live as a forgotten farmer or as the man who tried to conquer time itself? The answer, like so much in history, is left for silence to decide. Imagine now the cool stillness underground. No breeze, no bird song. Just the hush of ancient dust, waiting for centuries beneath the soil. You are standing at the edge of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in history, a place untouched by sunlight for over 2,000 years. It is the year 1974. A group of farmers near Xi'an are digging a well. The ground is hard. Dry, their shovels strike something unusual: baked clay, smooth and patterned. Not stone, not bone, not earth. Something crafted. What they had found, quite by accident, was the edge of a vast chamber, a place built long ago in secret and left to sleep. As excavations began, the scale became clearer and more bewildering. What lay below was no tomb in the usual sense. It was an entire army, rows upon rows of life-sized statues, terracotta warriors, each one unique. Over 8,000 soldiers, cavalry, archers, generals, every face different. Some stern, some serene, some young, others weathered. They stood shoulder to shoulder in silence, as if awaiting a command that would never come. This underground army was created to guard Qin Shi Huang in death, just as the living army had served him in life. Carved from clay, then fired in kilns, these statues were originally painted in bright colors, reds, blues, greens, but the pigments faded quickly when exposed to air. What remains now are their quiet forms, gray and ghost-like. Their weapons were real bronze swords and spears, some still sharp. Their chariots once bore lacquered wood, now crumbled with time. Yet their arrangement, their order, remains precise, almost reverent. The warriors stand in long corridors, beneath timber roofs once supported by earth. Many roofs collapsed over time, burying the soldiers in soil. Archaeologists must now brush away the centuries, grain by grain, uncovering faces that have not seen light since they were sealed away. And yet this is only part of the mystery. The emperor's tomb itself, the heart of the mausoleum, remains untouched. Ancient records, especially those written by the Han historian Sima, Qian describe a wonder beneath the ground, a palace for the dead, filled with rare treasures, rivers of mercury flowing through bronze channels and ceilings, encrusted with jewels to mimic the stars above. These descriptions sound fantastical, and yet scientific surveys using remote sensing have revealed high levels of mercury in the soil around the burial mound. It is possible that the stories are true, that beneath that unexcavated hill lies a chamber sealed with deadly metals, preserved by time and poison alike. Why not open it? The answer, as with many things in archaeology, is caution. The technology to safely excavate such a site may not yet exist. The tomb might collapse, the contents might decay instantly upon exposure, or worse, valuable knowledge could be lost before it's fully understood. And so it waits in the quiet earth of Shanxi province. The first emperor's tomb remains sealed. The warriors stand watch. The river of mercury, if it exists, flows silently beneath. It is a reminder that history does not always reveal its secrets all at once. Some things sleep for millennia, and some perhaps should. Still beyond the tomb, the cultural legacy of the Qin endures. The standardization of characters brought a unifying script to millions. The building of roads allowed commerce to flow more freely. Even the calendar was adjusted to bring heaven and earth into greater alignment. But for all this order, so little survives in daily memory. The Qin dynasty lasted only 15 years, a brief flash of flicker, and then gone. And yet one can still stand before those silent warriors, their hollow eyes staring past you, and feel something timeless, something watching, something waiting. So much of China's ancient past lies beneath layers of earth, river, silt, and time, shrines to forgotten gods, steely, bearing laws no longer obeyed. Foundations of cities now covered by rice paddies, and all of it, every shard, every figure, every wall, tells a piece of the same quiet story of a civilization trying to outlast oblivion. Imagine now high wooden gates creaking open at dawn. Stone lions sit still at the threshold, their expressions unreadable. Inside, a stately courtyard unfolds. The walls are smooth and whitewashed, the roof tiles deep gray, layered like scales. Bamboo rustles gently along the walkways. This is the residence of a Qin official. While peasants toiled in fields, Qin elites lived in a different rhythm, still governed by law, but buffered by power. These men, rarely women, were not born into nobility by blood alone. Many rose through bureaucratic service, appointed and promoted by loyalty to the state, not by family name. Under the first emperor, the ancient traditions of aristocratic clans were swept aside. The empire did not want lords, it wanted functionaries, measured, obedient, replaceable. These officials, scribes, magistrates, tax collectors, lived well but were always aware that favor could vanish as easily as it was granted. Their homes were tidy, symmetrical, and quiet. Courtyards were divided according to status. Servants moved softly. Everything had its place. Meals were finer here. Cooked rice instead of millet, pork boiled in ginger wine, poured from bronze vessels during evening meals. Calligraphy brushed onto scrolls, the characters tight and square, following the newly unified script of the realm. Clothing marked rank, darker colors for lower clerks, embroidered patterns for higher administrators. Silk was permitted, but not ostentatious. Modesty in appearance, clarity in paperwork, and precision in punishment, these were the pillars of Qin elite life. And yet for all the elegance, tension lingered the law. Always the law was present in every chamber, every conversation. Legalism, the governing philosophy of the Qin, demanded that rewards and punishments be meted out with absolute fairness. No one, not even the highest minister, was above its reach. Imagine a clerk hesitating for a moment before carving a tally into his bamboo. A mistake could bring demotion. An error in tax calculation might lead to public shame or worse, execution. Power in Qin society flowed from the emperor downward. There was no senate, no council of elders to soften his will. Edicts were carved into stone and displayed in public squares. There was little room for interpretation. And yet these same officials helped organize some of the most remarkable engineering feats of the era: canals that connected rivers, roads that crossed entire provinces, granaries that stored millions of bushels of grain. They were builders in their way, but they were also watchers. Each district had its spies, its informants. Letters were examined, movements recorded. Qin elites lived better than commoners, but they lived under scrutiny just the same. Beneath them, artisans and craftsmen occupied a strange middle space. Not quite peasants, not quite elite. Their skills working with bronze, lacquer, and silk were prized but tightly controlled. Many worked directly for the state, their creations destined for palaces, temples, or tombs. A potter might spend years crafting roof tiles for a single building. A sculptor might be summoned to help form a terracotta general, never knowing where it would be placed or why. Wealth existed, yes, but it was often fleeting. Land ownership was restricted. Wealth not connected to the state was treated with suspicion. Merchants could grow rich, but they lacked status. Scholars could become advisors, but only if they followed the official doctrine. Women in elite households lived more privately. Some were educated. Some composed poetry or practiced calligraphy, but their roles were defined by their relationship to husbands, sons, or fathers. They managed the household, oversaw servants, and preserved lineage. Occasionally, one might wield soft influence behind a screen or curtain, but rarely did she hold direct power, and so the structure held tight, ordered, unyielding. In this rigid society, there was a strange kind of equality and fear. From farmer to general, all were bound to the law. All were watched. All were recorded. But perhaps that is what the first emperor intended. Not a land of happiness, but of harmony. Not a land of freedom, but of forever. And though his dynasty would fall, his methods, his obsession with structure left deep grooves in China's history. Dynasties after him would borrow, adapt, reshape, but none would forget that Qin taught China what it meant to be ruled and what it cost to hold the center too tightly. And now the voices of the past begin to fade. The fields of the Qin peasant grow dim, the soil cool beneath the gathering dusk. The warriors in their earthen chambers return to stillness. The emperor's shadow recedes into legend, the weight of the laws, the rituals of the court. The slow rhythm of labor all drift behind us, like lanterns bobbing downstream. You've walked through an empire of order, but also of quiet persistence. In the end, it was not just the grand armies or towering walls that defined the Qin dynasty. It was the lives of those who endured within it. The farmer with his single iron plow, the artisan shaping clay into silent guardians, the official calculating grain quotas by oil lamp light. Even the emperor searching restlessly for immortality, all part of the same intricate ancient pattern. Though the dynasty lasted only a brief 15 years, its echoes can still be felt in the script that shaped Chinese writing, in the legal traditions that influenced generations, in the name Qin that would become China. And now here you are. Not in a palace, not in a field, but somewhere in between, with time gently slowing. Let your thoughts drift like the river waters that once flowed through Qin canals. Let your breath steady like the steps of a farmer returning home. Let the silence of terracotta faces watch over your dreams. Tomorrow will come, but tonight there is only stillness. Thank you for joining us on this gentle passage through time. Sleep well.